Hello and welcome to this Mastering the Machine webinar for the 4th of January 2025, the first webinar of the new year. Today's topic is kind of a general discussion of what I'm up to and a little bit on AI and a presentation by Phil Scruggs on the Jetson microcontroller and how he is using it next year for some vision applications and a little bit of AI. So if you're interested in AI, there is some pretty good information on this webinar. I'd like to mention something about last month's webinar, which was the art of learning. It kind of blew up a little bit on both LinkedIn and YouTube, and I do appreciate everybody who attended to that webinar and checked it out and liked it and subscribed on YouTube. It does relate to kind of what we're talking about today. So if you didn't see that, go ahead and check it out. And if you like this video and you'd like to subscribe, please do so. If you'd like to join the Automation Academy, please do so. And I hope you enjoy today's topic. Thanks. So welcome to this Mastering the Machine webinar for the 4th of January 2025. Happy New Year, just a few days ago. This is the 82nd webinar that I have done in about 4 years. And for a while, these were every couple of weeks. I think I even did them every week for a while. And then they've kind of migrated and become a once a month event for about the last year. The topic today is just a general discussion on a variety of topics. And I do have my friend Phil Scruggs here. Hello, Phil.
Hey, welcome.
He is going to be talking about a couple interesting things, including this little microcontroller that I have a picture of here, or a development kit attached to it. But before we get too far into this, go ahead and kind of pay the bills here. What is the Automation Academy? The Automation Academy is the sponsor of this, and we created a webinar as part of the Automation Academy called Mastering the Machine, which was actually named after a document that I put out on my blog probably 12 years ago. And you can download it at either one of these two websites listed up here in the left corner. But the Automation Academy itself is a membership website that has a lot of training videos on various PLC platforms. I do teach PLCs around the country and here in Nashville, and also somewhat online, and started making some recordings for that. So there's some training videos on there. There's some job and aptitude assistance, systems integration tips. There is a library that is ever growing, always putting new training and technical documents, have some new AI stuff up there, have some new ignition documents, a brand new ignition outline if you are getting your core certification for ignition, which I am about done with. We do have a community with interest groups. This is open to anybody. IO Central, you can find it on the automationllc.com website. If you just hit the community.automationllc.com, it is not widely used, but if you're interested in different interest groups, there are topical groups for different PLC platforms and topics. So why did I start all this stuff, right? The building blocks of industrial automation, it's not just all about PLCs. It is about a lot of different topics. If you are going to get into controls, machine building, many of these technical fields, you don't only need to know one topic. There was an interesting discussion on LinkedIn yesterday about somebody who was kind of trying to be a gatekeeper and say, you know, we don't need more people programming PLCs, because he had I guess JavaScript was very, very popular for a while. All of a sudden, everybody and their brother learned JavaScript, and he said that lowered the wages for JavaScript programmers down to about $45K a year. Well, you need to know a lot more than JavaScript, even if you're a programmer. You need to know lots of different topics. So the same is true of industrial automation. It's not just about PLCs. You need to know about computers and machine safety, motion control. We all learn the basics in high school. We move through college and learn lots of these different topics. But before even getting into PLCs, you need to know a lot of these steps below PLCs. And then there are lots of high-level topics, high-level languages, things like that, One we're going to be talking about today a little bit is AI, right? Which is basically artificial intelligence. That's kind of a misnomer. We'll talk a little bit about that. But database programming, SCADA, lots of things that are part of all this. And the reason I put the question marks up at the top is because that's for you to figure out, right? What are your other topics that you need to learn personally to become an expert in whatever your field is? And all these topics here that you see underneath, I do teach these. So these are topics that we have within the Automation Academy. And you can check it out. It's a pretty low cost to enter for just a month. It's $9.99 a month. You don't have access to some of the premium videos, but there are some training courses in there at that low price. And then there are some more advanced training classes that are $29.99 a month. Phil was one of the earlier testers of the site before I even released it to the public. So, Phil and I now go back 4 or 5 years. We've kind of made even a trip together and gotten together a few times. So today's topic, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to kind of review what went on. And this, I apologize a little bit for the crowded screen, but I tried to put everything last year on one screen. So last January, I actually had my first Mastering the Machine workshop. I had just 3 people signed up for it, but it was a 2-week program. And we did in-person training in the room that you see right there on the screen, right? So it was January. It was very cold. It snowed. If anybody remembers the big snowstorm that hit the South, it was like down around 0 degrees, and we got probably 6 inches of snow here. And 2 of the guys stayed in a Airbnb right next to this facility. And we did 2 straight weeks, and one of them was from Cuba. He had never even seen snow. So that was quite an adventure for him. And so we did that. That was 3 weeks or 2 weeks. We did a whole bunch of different things, all the topics you see here, a little bit of Cognex and Beckhoff, mostly Allen Bradley and Siemens training. The cost was $600 a day, and that's still an open price. I can still do that even for one person as time allows. So I didn't do one this year, at least not yet, because lots of other things have come up. In April, I went to Kauai, which was really fun. I have 2 kids, and then they have 2 kids each. So we all went to Kauai and had a great big family vacation. That was really awesome. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Then went to the Automate show, and Phil was there also. He was there, I think, looking at a lot of microcontrollers and a variety of things, some machine vision. I met a company called Gakuto, which actually their parent company is ICR 24/7. And what they are is a contract manufacturer. So they actually help me now with my trainers. I'm on revision 3 of my little trainers. There's a picture on that on the next screen. That's part of my plans for this year. Then in July, I went to an advanced HMI class. You can see their logo here. I've talked about them before on 2 different webinars. It is a free software that you can learn to program HMIs, and they have drivers for PLCs and create. Actually, the guy that invented it uses it for full-blown SCADA, and it's completely free. So for people who say SCADA software is too expensive, it's a trade-off. If you really think you can learn things like Microsoft Visual Studio, a little bit of Visual Basic, and maybe some SQL database stuff, you can use this platform as SCADA, as he does. He uses it for pretty large installations, and you don't have to pay a thing for it. There are some premium things, but if you buy all of the plugins for it, they're a grand total of $22. You can't beat that, and they're for unlimited use. Can't beat that at all. OT SCADACon. I also had a webinar on this. I have a whole lot of new friends after speaking at this conference. I did 2 of the topics, and we are doing another one this year in July also. It's a lot of fun. I've already talked about that. I'm not going to go in any further. I did teach for automation training this past year, and during one of the trips, I came back in August from Cincinnati, and the ceiling had fallen in. And that is the picture that you see there. So you see a bunch of plastic tables, and I had laptops, and things like that in there. And the ceiling fell in, it crushed my projector and screen, which I use for training. So that's under that pile of stuff. It landed on several computers. There was even a trainer under there. There were a kind of a variety of things. So I used that excuse to kind of rebuild this place a little bit. I'm going to be talking about that. In September, had a kidney stone. Let's see, before that, July, I had a UTI. Then I had a kidney stone in September. I think they were connected. Even had a heart scare in there. They were probably all connected. And I did have surgery just a couple months ago on that. So surprise, surprise, right? I'm an old guy, so I'm almost 65 years old. And lots of things happened last year that were kind of scary, but I'm all in good shape now. Automation NTH. You see their logo up here, NTH University. They were kind of a sponsor of this show. Most of the webinars, I have contracted to them for the past 3 years and created content, including lots of Beckhoff, Code Assist, Alan Bradley, of course, things like that for them, and also use it for my own purposes. My contract ended with them, and that was 2 weeks a month. So all of a sudden, I had some free time. And for November and December, I used that free time to study new platforms, including in the upper left of this screen, Ignition, which is a large SCADA platform that I use down in Miami at ABD, where I am going, by the way, in another week for a couple weeks, and also started studying AI, which kind of leads us to a different topic. This year, continuing some of these plans, well, does the office, the training facility look a little different, right? That is the start of my training room. That's pretty much a picture as of yesterday. Have a new table. Instead of a bunch of plastic tables, I have that full table. I have these cool looking bookcases. I'm still missing the pegs to hang 6 more shelves. And you notice, I thought I had a lot of books. As it turns out, I mean, I do have a reasonable number of books there, but now I need more books to fill my bookshelves. These are all technical books. They're programming books and things like that. Some of my own books you see on the lower right there. A bunch of automation trainings manuals. What else am I going to do this year? Well, without automation NTH work, I'm going to teach and I'm going to do systems integration. Probably PLCs and Ignition like I have done in the past. And as I said, I'm actually working heavily in the next 3 months with ABD, who I have also done webinars on down in Miami. As a matter of fact, Phil went to ABD with me during COVID. We actually drove down there. I picked him up and we took a little hike in the Everglades. That was interesting. Saw various flora and fauna and things. There is another OT SCADACon. It is twice as big as it was. We had about 100 and some odd attendees, and we outgrew it. We used the Phoenix Experience Center, and we have outgrown that. It was packed, and it will be twice the size probably this year. And I don't know exactly where we're doing it, but it will be in Houston. You can find all that stuff on LinkedIn and online. Just type in OT SCADACon, and you will find it. We'll certainly be working on Automation Academy content. We'll be building more trainers and doing fabrication. ICR 247 builds the black trainers that you see both behind me. Well, actually, yeah, you can see them at the top of my picture. They build these now. This is revision 3 of my trainers, and they are build your own enclosure kits. And I have a little book that you can, wire your own enclosure. And then I use it to control things like these little models. You see the Fisher Technique models. Again, I've done webinars on those in the past. These are my little workshops. You can see my 3D printer sitting over here and a little panel fab table, a bunch of pneumatic stuff. I have a wood shop outside that goes hand in hand with building some of these little models and things. And then inside, I have more of the high tech, hopefully doesn't create a lot of dust stuff. And then what you see here is kind of a picture of where I'm sitting right now. So that is kind of my plans for next year, working with some of these partners, doing a lot of work for ABD over the next 3 to 4 months, creating more content and using AI, which leads to the next topic that I'm going to mention briefly, to do marketing. And I've actually I'm kind of scared of marketing. I'm not good at it. There's still a piece that I need to figure out how to do, and it's not AI. It's a matter of using a calendar to schedule output, right? And use MailChimp for emails and things like that, which I've just always been really bad at. But I did learn a lot about AI, and I'm going to use that to kind of segue into the next section. So in the last webinar, for anybody who is attending here or seeing this on YouTube, you can check this out. The last webinar I did on the art of learning. And that was because I was studying two different things. I was studying ignition, which I already kind of pointed out, since the end of October, beginning of November. And I created some methods that came in very handy for me. I'm an old guy. And so I took a whole lot of notes. I need to do that because my brain doesn't remember things well. So I took a lot of notes, did a lot of online research, practiced quite a bit, right? So when it came to ignition, first off, they have a excellent training program. You just go in there, watch the videos, take notes, take challenge tests, and they are hard. None of the questions are easy to answer without actually watching the videos and taking good notes or remembering it. If you have a photographic memory, more power to you. I don't. But you can learn that way. The other thing I started studying, and at the time that I did that webinar, I'd been doing it for less than a month, right? Which was AI. And I took this from a company called Coursive.io. It was a very cheap AI course, and it does not get good reviews online. However, I mentioned that it's up to you. You have to have a why you are learning it, and you really need to use whatever the material is. I think I paid, I believe, a subscription, and it may be $20 a month. And I've only paid for a little over a month so far. However, it's kind of like a bunch of PowerPoints with really easy quiz questions. There is no hands-on because you have to sign up for ChatGPT and Jasper and those things yourself, which some of those cost, which causes its own problems, right? If you were to pay for all these platforms, you'd be paying a lot of money per month. So I'm probably going to create a course on this and leverage the 7-day trials, thinking about having an AI course, which is AI for busy executives. Thought about bringing people in from manufacturers in my area, probably, and saying, how can AI help your company? Bring your laptop, sign up for these 7-day trial periods, and we will use them during however many days you're here. You need to set aside some time to test these things out, as I have done. I have signed up. Of course, I use ChatGPT anyway. ChatGPT also uses DALL-E, which is DALL-E's down here. It actually has it embedded in it. So if you want to create images, you can use DALL-E through ChatGPT to create images. And I created my first couple of images the other day and had it help me write a New Year's blog post. It did a very good job. So I've learned a lot about how to write prompts, which is the key to AI. If you are going to be good at it, you need to either be able to speak prompts, which I have a friend that's very good at doing that. He just talks into his phone and creates images, and they're pretty awesome. They're funny. He's one of the OT Skaticon guys. So these first 4 platforms are the Coursive courses, right? ChatGPT, Midjourney, I'm done with those. I'm mostly through Jasper, and I'm probably going to pay for Jasper because it is the marketing tool I was talking about. DALL-E, which I haven't gone through their module, but I've used it. Then all these other things. Copilot and Microsoft Studio is what my buddy Albert uses out in California to create the cool graphics. These other things, right? Google Gemini, TensorFlow, PyTorch. I think PyTorch does Python. So it kind of focuses on that. And then all these things you see here. I just read on this morning, C3.ai, awash in AI platforms. I'm going to very quickly summarize kind of what they said, but they said C3.ai said companies will invest more than $250 billion annually by 2025, which is this year, It will generate more than 13 trillion annually in added value. I do believe that because it saved me a ton of time, way, way quicker than me creating marketing content or blogs. Fastest growing enterprise software market in history, right? Fastest growing for enterprise software. And a lot of people are, and this is maybe where some of Phil's comments may come in, because this platform that he was looking at, the Jetson, it says something about AI. And it says here, the market is awash in open source AI platforms that purport to be solutions sufficient to design, develop, provision, and operate enterprise AI and IoT applications. In other words, you can license some of these things and it will do AI for you, whether it's something simple like a chatbot or something maybe that does marketing or answers questions specific to your industry. Who knows, right? And then the other comment they made is, in this era of AI hype, there are literally hundreds of these on the market, and the numbers increase every day, that present themselves as comprehensive AI platforms. And their statement is, no, none of them are comprehensive, and all the things that are on this page are missing something. And so you can see all these, I mentioned Amazon, the big boys, Microsoft, you see some names like Apache here, AWS, Azure, a lot of these things, but also some of these smaller ones. RapidMiner, I assume, has something to do with data mining. So lots of different things to think about with AI. I'm not going to go into great depth on AI right now because I don't know a ton about it other than what I've been learning over the last couple months, right, of studying these. So these platforms I'm getting okay at. ChatGPT, Midjourney was very interesting. It was great for art. You could create, all kinds of images that were imaginary landscapes or people's faces or whatever. Jasper, mostly marketing. DALL-E, mostly images. Haven't touched on these, but I did mention that Microsoft Studio, of which Copilot is part of it, is used by my friend Albert. So from there, I'm going to kind of open this up and let Phil maybe talk a little bit about what he's been up to. So what's up, Phil?
Well, yeah, thank you for the good introduction, and definitely appreciate the summary of all the things that you've been doing over the past year as well. That ignition component sounds interesting as well, so I'll be curious about that. But yeah, if you don't mind, I can go ahead and share a brief little presentation I put together
All
with
right, let me go ahead and do that. Everybody pardon the
minor delay, but
minor delay while we swap over here. And okay, I think you should be allow. Go ahead.
are you able to see or not yet? Let me go
Not
ahead
yet.
and zip back over here. Try one more time. Excellent. Here we go.
There we go. All right, the Jetson Orin Nano. Cool.
Yep. So I figured this would be a good time to kind of talk about some exciting plans for next year. So about a month ago, NVIDIA released this little platform called the Jetson Orin Nano. And previously, it has existed, but they cut the price in half. And so it suddenly became compelling based on the large price drop and performance increases. Um, so, what would kind of make something like this appealing? It's kind of looks like a dev board. It kind of reminds people of a Raspberry Pi almost, where you'll have your GPIO pins, some various inputs and outputs, but what does this have that, say, a Raspberry Pi doesn't have? And that's a GPU on board. And so what a lot of people are doing with these are various AI type projects. Frank, you had mentioned a lot of trips to Micro Center in the past for various components, and a lot of makers and community members in automation and across the industry in general have a lot of these components laying around, but not necessarily put to use. A platform like this does enable a lot of those components to be put to use. So Pi camera modules might be something that are laying around. It's got inputs for those. Uh, Check the version, of course, but these ribbon cables to camera do exist, and you can incorporate a lot of different cameras onto this platform for various vision projects. I'm going to focus a little bit on the vision aspect of these devices. However, the field of AI is very broad. Like you mentioned, Frank, you had the slide up earlier with many platforms, some for voice generation, some for uh, marketing kind of exercises, and then a lot for art. Um, my projects kind of are going to focus next year on vision. So incorporating different cameras into this type of platform and what type of computer vision applications we can do with this. So you might wonder, well, why would this platform work? Like, how does this enable anything to happen? There's always been vision boards out there. What's going to make this easier for a user like you or me to facilitate a project with? And that is the platform of pre-trained models that exist for this. And so what you can do is you can go to, a generic website and you can go and kind of look for your use cases. I picked two pretty generic ones to kind of focus on. One is going to be object detection, so people detection, vehicle detection, face detection, some things that one might use on a project, whether it's machine building or whether it's a security platform or whether it's just a general vision application where you're tracking vehicles leaving and coming a driveway. These types of things can be implemented on this platform. This can be implemented on the device itself. This is not cloud connected if you so choose to make it so. um, One other area that I like to kind of think about as well, this is more in the creative realms, is how can we use this for some type of interactive art installation or something? And so there's pose demo and pose classification. So this is where you have a person in the frame, and then you kind of estimate what they're doing. So if you have your hands up, or if you have like a different prop or something, you could use it for something like that. One way that this could be useful for like an art installation would be if somebody is dancing or somebody is moving or jumping in a certain way. You might be able to build some type of interactive exhibit. I'll get to more on that a little bit later. But from a strictly industrial standpoint, you might want to use this for if someone is around a machine and they're in a position that's unsafe, right? So if somebody is standing up in a certain area and they're standing up and they look healthy, they're just propped up normally, that might indicate, a normal situation. But if somebody is reaching a limb into an area that's dangerous, for instance, obviously there's safety measures that should be in place, but maybe this area doesn't have any requirements and somebody happens to be sideways or, a pose indicating danger. It might be good to recognize. So a lot of different kind of areas to explore or look into with this type of technology. Again, a lot of those, if we're thinking more like in business use cases, you have a cloud connection. You can do a lot of these in the cloud. But if you start narrowing it down to other use cases, you might not have a cloud connection. You might want to deploy this into a field device that doesn't necessarily have a cloud connection. How can you enable some of the key technologies that people are doing with a cloud connection into a machine that doesn't happen to be plugged in to the cloud? So thinking about how to do that is important. So yeah, to get on to kind of pose estimation and interactive exhibits. So in the past, I did an exhibit where people would dance on these life-size dance pads, and we used Home Assistant as the platform for turning on and off the various LED flowers in the field. Wasn't 2024, this was actually in 2023. However, uh, I've constantly been thinking about how can we improve this? How can we add capability to this type of exhibit in the future? And so rather than just push buttons where someone is stepping, why don't we incorporate some poses that somebody could do with this, right? So they can continue stepping on the various buttons, but why not have poses where someone could stick their arms up or put an X or something to like change the music? All sorts of various things could be incorporated into this, and some parts could be for people to discover on their own by trying new things, and some parts could kind of be listed out on maybe a poster or something before they hit it. But there seems to be a lot of different things that we might be able to incorporate into a project like this. And a lot of times, people will refer to in the field. This is literally in a field, and so the data connectivity is somewhat limited. It may not make sense to feed 5 or 6 video streams to the cloud. Let me go back real quick. Slide 4 again. Sorry about that. So thinking about what would we want to do with pose estimation would be if you have 5 or 6 cameras, sending a backstream to the cloud in real time for 6 dance pads simultaneously might rack up a pretty hefty data bill. However, if we're processing this locally on a Jetson Nano, for instance, we may be able to estimate 6 simultaneous poses in real time at several frames per minute, right? We don't necessarily need 30 frames per second like a video feed. Um, as far as generating what that pose is, we probably only need 2 or 3 per second, right? If you're going to hold your hands up, about a second latency would probably be acceptable for most people on that dance pad to trigger a different song or a different lighting scheme. All sorts of various fun elements could be incorporated with this. And so I think the plan for 2025 for me is going to be figuring out how can we incorporate a Jetson Nano in with the system as a whole. There's a lot of potential with it, it seems like, beyond just press button on off dance pads, right? Which is very limited in some capacity. So another thing or another fun element might be objects in the frame. So with a lot of different object detection models, which can be run on the Jetson Nano, you could potentially have props. So you've seen the photo booths where you have funny glasses or little signs that people hold up at weddings or things. If not, it's basically just a box of little props that people can hold up. And so here's someone holding a flower, and you would easily be able to have a model that says flower detected. If a flower is detected that somebody is holding up in the image, change the music or change all the colors to yellow and orange or something. There's all sorts of things that could happen with that. That would provide a really interesting, exciting experience for participants. And of course, this is just purely talking about like an art exhibit. You could always extend this into some type of industrial system as well, as long as the reliability is expected. So we do talk a lot about some of the potential of AI and how it can be all encompassing for a lot of things. But if we try and think about a very specific problem and box it down into, a very resilient solution for that very small box, we have a potential for a very reliable system to be in place for a specific problem. So say, for instance, a flower is not allowed in a certain area. The model can be very, very accurate about flowers in a specific area not being taken in. How does that apply to industry? Try replacing a flower with a certain chemical that's not allowed in a certain building. If you have a camera placed on the door and it is specifically trained to recognize that one chemical and it's not allowed in that certain area, you can get very high accuracies for identifying that chemical in that area and say, hey, stop. You can wire it up to a light, a hazard siren, an email alert, whatever. But that type of system can be implemented. And that's a very specific thing. We're not saying, hey, identify all the chemicals in the world and tell us how to use it, which a lot of the AI hype promises. We're kind of focused on one single problem. Hey, one specific hazardous substance is not allowed in a very specific area. And when that substance enters that area, send a warning. That type of system is much more doable rather than saying, hey, market to a broad audience about how to sell a company. That's a much larger challenge. And I don't have as much expertise in that. But when it comes to whether flowers are in a image or whether a chemical is in a very certain area, seems like you could design a very robust system for that in making sure that it's reliable at detecting that flower or that chemical in that certain area and keeping the boundaries around what that solution is expected to do very, very confined. You can have some really innovative, interesting solutions to that. So that's what I wanted to kind of talk about is what are some of my plans with this and specifically vision projects. You can also run some of the LLMs that you had discussed earlier, Frank. You can run Llama on it. You can have a microphone attached to this and people ask it questions like generate a story about computer vision projects in the future. And it will output results in real time, essentially, which is fantastic. But what I'm really interested in over the next year is how to put some of those trips to Micro Center components to use, and that involves cameras and things. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to be up to the next year, and um, I'm truly excited to talk about over the coming months.
Very cool. So, for those who haven't seen any of Phil's previous webinars with me, 9 December 2023, I believe, is when Phil presented his Gleam project, which is those flowers and how that went. That was December of year before last. And he
Mhm.
he did a bunch of kind of some, I don't think there was any video as such. Maybe there was, but there were definitely a lot of pictures. I remember it was in a park somewhere up in
Mhm.
maybe Wisconsin or something like that.
Correct. Yep, it was in Madison.
Madison, Wisconsin. So it was very cool. And also, Phil has done back during COVID, Phil presented something on a little bit of facial recognition. It wasn't facial recognition, it was temperature
Mhm.
measurement and recognizing that it was a person. And then, okay, this is a person and he has a high temperature.
Yep.
And it was very, very cool stuff. And as as you know, I kind of talked to Phil a little bit earlier, and one of the things I mentioned is I still have my room full of stuff. But I go to Micro Center a lot and I buy a lot of stuff. I have probably 8 or 9 cameras. I have at least 8 Raspberry Pis of different models, threes, fours, and fives. I haven't touched the fives. The 2 4s that I have, the 4Bs, one is going to my house and one is in a panel behind me. And that one is using pie plates, which I did another presentation on. That's DIN rail mountable. Let's go ahead and switch back to this. And so my intent is obviously to use that stuff that I got from Micro Center, but I'm kind of, I don't know if I classically have ADHD or not, but I tend to like squirrel, chase things for a while. And the good news is over the years, I am making progress on all of them. These panels that you see behind me, these enclosures, I'm on revision 3. That's probably
Mhm.
the final revision, and I actually have a contract manufacturer that makes them, so now I can sell them. I need to find somebody else to wire them. I am not interested in wiring anymore. I'm wiring 3 Siemens panels in the next week, and it's okay, but it's not my thing. Same thing with a lot of this. I had an intern, and that drove me into using a lot of the Raspberry Pi stuff and the Arduinos and the board level. I bought some ESP32s last time I was at Micro Center because Phil had mentioned them. And he said, "Oh, yeah,
Well,
ESP32s, they're a little different, right? They do a little slightly different than the Arduinos and things like that." So I bought some and haven't even hooked them up yet. So, it's kind of like my eyes are too big for my stomach. I think they say that you eat too much. I buy too much. I have all
well,
kinds of things from.
well, don't buy a Jetson until you're ready.
Oh, no, no,
Until you have a
250
plan for
bucks
it.
is a lot to spend. But a great example, I bought a 3D printer and I printed the legs for my conveyors. And then I printed the little poop chute that catches the stuff, right? Did
Yeah.
that. And then got a little bit into Fusion Pro so that I could design
Okay.
things, drew my legs and then didn't touch it for months and months. All of a sudden, I got this table and I drilled these giant holes in it for wire access, and
Hmm.
they're terrible looking. So I have to cover those with something, and it makes sense. 3D print
Yep.
an insert that will go in there, and that's easy to draw. And I also have 2 more conveyors that I have to print legs for. The problem is it is sat here in my little fabrication room, and I know it's humidity conscious, even though bamboo, it's inside of a housing and it has desiccants and things like that. I'm hoping that I just power it up and print. But we'll see. If not, I'll have to get more filament, which if so, well, I have sealed filament too, but I have 4 reels of filament sitting up in
Hmm.
the thing that I'm gonna find out because I
Yep.
have
To
to
be
print these
determined.
next week. Yeah. Yeah. So conveyor legs and those inserts. So same thing. Go buy a bamboo. I was real excited by it. NTH had 2 of them. It was like, I'm going to
Yeah.
get that brand. It was great. It
I've
works
heard
very
good
well.
things.
You know,
I've heard good things about that.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. But again, now, so mine again connected to I was kind of panicking a little bit because that's why I was learning marketing because I need jobs, right? I need to go out and do integration jobs or I need to teach. I do okay with the academy. I need to advertise that more too, but that doesn't bring in enough income anywhere near to live on. So I have to get back into this. And it was like, okay, learn AI to do all that, but also these models, right? If you're going to build these models, 3D printing the components for them for prototyping is perfect. That's exactly the way to do it. But then all of a sudden, my buddy Juan from ABD said, we got 3, 4 projects. By the way, you're now getting ignition certified. I've been waiting for you to do that because I need you to do some ignition work. Great. I'm excited about it. I just spent almost 2 months. It took me 6 weeks to get all the coursework done. That's how long it takes to do ignition. And I'm done with that, but I still don't have my core certification. You have to take a test in addition to the challenges. You have to
Hmm.
debug an application. They send you the application, you debug it. And they also, the thing that's stopped me from doing it right now, it costs $350. That's one thing. The other thing is you have to have a enabled camera on your computer. I don't exactly know what the purpose of that is, other than maybe they don't want to see you looking through your notes. I have a crappy memory, so I that's probably not going to be great because the challenges were hard. I took extensive notes, and to do a challenge, I had to go through my notes and take the best guess, and I would fail some of the challenges. You have to get 100 on every challenge.
And that's the Inductive University
Yes, that's inductive university.
um, courses. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there
I
are
recall
probably
those being a
400
challenge.
videos. I'm
Yeah.
guessing there's 400 videos, anywhere from 1 minute to as
Like
much as
five,
10 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, 5 or 10 minutes long sometimes.
Yeah. And there is deep material there. And if you don't practice with it, which I'm going to get the practice. Like I said, I'm leaving Sunday, and one of the first things he wants to do is add the pasteurizers into the system. I'm probably going to set up security, all of his personnel stuff, right? And do all that because I told him, yeah. That's all the people tracking and operators. Do you have all that? And he said, well, a little bit, but nobody's come in and emphasized doing that. Well, you need to know who's logged in and what they're doing. Yeah.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah. From the server standpoint. Okay. I was thinking access control, but
that
that's more
too.
physical.
It's access control. Is this operator allowed to use this screen?
Hmm.
Or who is logged in that did this thing, because they have had problems. Who loaded this stuff backwards?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they can kind of track that. They have a lot of kind of turnover and new people. So they're going to need to
Hmm.
figure out an easy way to assign somebody a number and a password and have that person log in, you know, whatever. And, a lot of their folks are Spanish, right? They're from Venezuela or, Argentina or wherever. Some
Hmm.
of them are multilingual, some aren't. So this is going to be a challenge also to use the translation, which I
Yep.
learned a lot
Multi-language
about.
support.
Easy to do. Yeah. So
Awesome.
you had something you mentioned about Ignition. Are you thinking of getting into that?
I did a few years ago, I did the Ignition University online component, but I did not take the test as well. So I'm not, I think they call it what, Ignition Gold certified
No, it's so
or,
core certification is the basic part.
oh,
Gold
it's the
is a
basic one.
lot of database stuff.
Okay, it's the additional database stuff.
And you
So
have to
yeah,
develop an app and turn the app into them. And I maybe even core is that now. So core is evolved. It includes perspective, which is
yep, it
their
includes
tablet
perspective.
based stuff. Yeah.
Yep, I think they've done that since 8.0 or 8.1, I think.
Yes. 8.1. Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I do recall, the videos and a lot of perspective questions as well. And so those were, as you said, very detail oriented.
Yeah.
Like what is this specific component on the screen called? And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you have to go back through your notes in order to see what those are because the sound of whatever word it is for how they're describing that specific block on the screen d doesn't always make sense. It's not always a common term.
Right.
Um,
Or, what menu is this under? And I'm like, well,
mhm.
without looking at the
Yep,
software, I don't know what menu it's under. I can find it. I click around until I find it, but I don't,
yep.
my memory's not that good. Now, Phil's was recently in school, fairly recently, within the last, few years, I guess. So
Sure, there's still detail-oriented questions.
yeah, yeah, they are. So, and the other thing is, and I mentioned this during last week's thing, there is a free version of this. There is a maker's version of Ignition. I don't think it does anything with databases, but don't know. I haven't tried that yet, but for home use, right? You want to do stuff with your IoT and home stuff, Google Cloud, or you mentioned no cloud required. That's huge for that Jetson. The one thing
Mhm,
I don't like about some of this AI stuff is, yes, it's pretty processor intensive stuff.
mhm,
And if you can
absolutely.
have it totally running on its own to do some simple things, you know,
Yeah,
and
it can help keep the AWS bill at bay or the
my
Microsoft Azure bill at bay.
my AWS bill is 27 cents a month.
Oh, excellent.
And that's for the Automation Academy, right? I have a lot of stuff on there. And if
Hmm.
anybody downloads anything, that's where it's coming from. And what it does is it gives access control to files from a specific website. So you have to be logged into the Automation Academy as a
Hmm.
member to download a lot of those things, which is a great feature. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, 27 cents a month is fantastic.
Yeah. But I'm also not using their horsepower. I'm just storing things. So,
Yeah, I'm slowly learning, and I've had some surprise bills of 20 to $30 a month pop up, and I was like, wait a second, that's not what I was expecting when I just turned on a few servers. That's it.
and
Nothing crazy.
was that was processing time?
I think one was like a database, spin up a little database. throw a few sample values in it, then forget about it for a week or two, as a learning exercise. And then a month later, you're like, whoa, that's a substantial bill. Wait, put me back in the free tier.
Exactly. So Ignition, a lot of the study that I did there, and I have not sat down and done it, but they have the MySQL stuff built into it. And so locally, right, you can do that and it will access stuff as long as you're on the same gateway, the same processor. And you can run that for free, right? Ignition runs for 2 hours. So you can develop an application. It runs for 2 hours and access that local database. And I think you can probably access the remote stuff, but again, it's going to stop running every 2 hours. So you're not going to get serious testing done probably with that.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So, and I don't see, it's hard to tell whether there's other people logged on. I don't have an easy way to check because they don't always appear here. But if anybody has any questions, sometimes people put things in the chat and then I just see it magically appear, but I don't see any of that. So probably nobody has any specific questions or I would have seen them, or there's nobody on. Hard to tell. But anyway, if you're seeing this on YouTube, give it a like, subscribe. We do this kind of stuff, like I said, about every month. Phil's been on several times, always has some very interesting things that I wish I had time to get into. You've been filling that space because I don't.
I don't have amazing results to present on the Jetson yet, but it's definitely something that I've got some plans for.
Next year at this time, like I said, I've got the cameras and I've hooked them up and I've gotten to where I can see what they see and they do amazing jobs. I think I've mentioned before, I ordered what I thought were 2 cameras and I got 8. There were 4 per package.
Fantastic.
And it was like $18 for 4 cameras. You can't beat that. That little ribbon cable that Phil showed, but there's no serious lens on there. And that's where,
yep.
Yeah.
That's where you get some pretty exciting features.
Yeah.
I've really been liking the autofocus lenses lately.
Yes. Right.
So fantastic.
Yeah. So that probably a good bit of cost that has physically moving parts.
Yeah, there's a few different technologies out there. You're familiar with the Cognex lenses.
Yep.
They have an autofocus lens that's controlled by liquid. So they kind of change the pressure of the plates to kind of, I guess there's a liquid filling inside, and that's an autofocus technology that I guess has moving parts, but not it's not like a lens that's moving back and forth with a motor.
I've had the motorized lens also. I think my Keyence may have had that.
Okay.
It made little noises. It had a little servo type thing.
Yeah, a little servo type motor in there.
Yeah, but the Cognex I also had, and I actually sold that to ABD. And then like me, they paid money for it. They paid me almost what I paid for it originally and then never used it. So when I go down there, I'm going to, they have several applications and Juan Pablo was kind of jumping out and saying, Keyence, I went up to the PAC Expo and I saw all these Keyence cameras. We ought to get into that. And I'm like, Juan Pablo, you own 2 Cognex cameras that are pretty cutting edge and they have the autofocus, they have everything. We can do that. You need to use them.
Well, I think some of the challenge with some of the different software platforms to program the devices is the licensing fees. And sometimes there's some confusion about getting things up and running and licensed appropriately. As I recall, Cognex can be a challenge with licensing sometimes because the camera has to be licensed, the software has to be licensed, then they have to kind of work together. One of the exciting things about what I presented on today with the NVIDIA Jetson is a lot of that stuff is available. It's open sourced, it's license free. You download it, you deploy it, you can do it 1,000,000 times within reason. And so that's kind of exciting. But you also don't have sales reps that you can call and get the support needed. You're kind of at the whims, but they are like you said, there are generations of different things, and we're moving up. Jetson's actually been around for quite some time. They've had several different platforms, and it seems like they've been getting better and better about the experience of the developer. So, like you as Frank or me as Phil can order this, and some of the basic tutorials are pretty smooth to get through, right? You don't have to do a whole lot of coding to get something to work, right? You should be able to reach out, download a model from the website, do basic commands to get that to run, and not have to open up a bunch of files, change config settings, and get into the weeds too much. So,
What is the camera platform? Is it OpenCV or OpenMV or something like that?
oh, for which one? So OpenCV is a very popular platform, OpenCV.
Yep.
You mentioned something called OpenMV. So there is a startup company that makes it's not NVIDIA Jetson, but it is it's not really similar. It's a miniaturized um, circuit board with a edge processing unit on it as well. It does not have the horsepower of the NVIDIA unit, but it offers some miniaturized capability, some similar capabilities for use cases. So some basic object detection, some face tracking, and the platform that I used for that face tracking temperature detection video that I did during COVID that you mentioned, that was using something called OpenMV. And they're still around. They've been innovating and have several new boards and new lenses for their devices. And one of the exciting things that I guess both of these platforms offer, right? So we had mentioned the exciting part about running these models on the edge, right? We're running on the device itself. That's great, but we don't want to always run things in isolation. When there's some type of results or we want to update the model, we want to be able to do that from a cloud platform from anywhere in the world, right? So these are still connected to the internet. They're just not sending all the data up, running it in the cloud, and then sending an output back to the device. They're running it, generating the output on the device itself. They're still connected to the internet though, because we may want to update the model. We may want those insights to be sent to the cloud platform as well as to whatever it's controlling in the field. So there are platforms for that. OpenMV and the Jetson both are able to be brought into a lot of these cloud platforms for managing the devices. Because, once we send this out to the field, we want to keep track of it. We want to keep an eye on what it's doing. We want to make sure it's operating as expected. Because your customers, whether they're art exhibit visitors or a business, you want to ensure that this is up and running and reliable. So both of these platforms do enable that or have the ability to be monitored online as well.
Awesome. Well, we're kind of getting down toward the end of time here. As usual, this has been, I learn a lot every time I listen to what you're doing because, like I said, something I have high interest in, but just haven't put the oomph behind it that I've had to for something like the study, the AI and the ignition. You honestly have to sit down and say, I'm going to dedicate this much time,
Mhm.
right, to learning this and to doing it and say I don't know if you do it every day, but twice a week, I'm going to sit down for 1 hour each day, at least plug things into my circuit boards and make them do things. And I did that
Mhm.
somewhat. I had an intern and he kind of drove me to doing some electronic stuff and then, set it down and squirrel, jumped on to
Yep. No,
something else.
something else more important comes up.
Yeah, sometimes it's the more important is making money. Sometimes the more important is your wife, right? And your kid.
Absolutely.
And now
Have wife and kids.
you've got another one coming, right? Or
Oh, he's here.
he's here.
Oh, yeah.
You've got two now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, it all started for me with two, and now I've got four grandkids. So A lot, yeah. Get to babysit them next weekend. They're staying over at our house for the first time while their parents go on a plane trip somewhere. And I got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old hanging out at our house with us for a couple nights. So that will be interesting. And then I leave immediately for Miami. So it will be an adventure. The next webinar, as far as I know, will be February 8th. I am kind of scheduling around my Miami trip, which I believe I'm leaving next Sunday, which is the 12th, I think. And I will be gone for 2 weeks. Then I'm going to come back here, do this, and I'm going to be out of town a lot until probably April, on and off. As far as trade shows, Automate, I know, is in May. It's in Detroit. I didn't lose anything in Detroit, so I probably will skip this one. OT Skatecon's in July. I will be at that. And I think we have a trade show here in Nashville in May. I believe April or May. I think it's the Assembly Show South. So I'll probably be there for those of you who want to connect. If you're seeing this on YouTube, right, you can find me. I put this Automatic Eye up here, and I don't think that's where you find it. I think you find Automation Consulting LLC, and there's like a 3894 number automatically appended to it, but pretty easy to find me on YouTube. If you're seeing this there, please give it a like, subscribe. I am getting somehow magically lots of subscribers lately, people who find the content interesting. Today's will be very popular, I can tell, because there was a lot of new information. I took pretty copious notes on everything Phil said, and may need to go back through it, especially if I get into the vision again, and start playing with it. But thanks for anybody who showed up and attended the next webinar. Like I said, join the Automation Academy, sign up for IO Central, do all the fun stuff, visit the websites, etc. We'll see you all next time.